We do find that if people use video, that it slows down connectivity. So we tend to use only audio.
But it would be okay if the presenters switch on their cameras.
We
Yes.
only use that for the presenters and for sign language interpreters when those are required.
All right. We don't use video on our side at all. We just show the presentation.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, we have about a couple of minutes, 4 minutes before we can start. We'll just allow time for people who are still connecting, and then we will start promptly at 10 o'clock. Sorry, Akona, can I just ask you, I'm not seeing Fani on at the moment. Is Fani joining us?
Fani will be joining us, but he has to leave for another commitment.
Okay, so would it be in order if we start with his presentation and then move on to yours? Or is it one presentation?
It's one presentation from SASSA.
Perfect.
Yes.
So no threat.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Good morning, anyone? Hello?
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Good morning. Morning.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Marina Clark. I am the chairperson of the South African Disability Alliance. Welcome to our webinar to discuss social grants and the work of SASSA. In terms of practical arrangements, can we please ask everybody to mute your sound so that we can get as good sound quality as possible? A lot of our participants rely heavily on sound quality, particularly our blind participants. So if you are not speaking, please mute your sound. I would like to take the opportunity to welcome Mr. Akona Mbombo, who is the manager in the Disability Management Unit at SASSA, who will be joined by Mr. Fani Sitocha, the general manager in the operations space, and to note an apology from Ms. Diane Dunkerley, the executive manager grants administration at SASSA, who unfortunately was called to another meeting, but will join us as soon as possible. Our meeting will be managed by Melanie Libber, who is the Secretariat of the South African Disability Alliance. We will take a presentation from our guests from SASSA. Please note your questions. There will be a question and answer session at the end of the presentation where you may ask any of the questions you have. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to this presentation.
Akona?
Yes, Melanie.
Okay, I'm going to make you the host for the meantime so that you'll be able to share your screen.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, before we start, can I just ask everybody, if you have not muted yourself, please do so now unless you are the speaker, so that we don't have interruptions of sound.
I don't know how we...
Okay, Akona, we can see your screen.
Okay, I hope you'll be able to see my presentation as well. Colleagues, can you see my presentations?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Still opening.
Yes.
Can you see my presentation, colleagues?
Yes, I can see it.
All right. Colleagues, thank you for the opportunity on our side. An apology has been extended for Dai and Mr. Fanny Situka, I think, will be joining us. Chair, can we once more request colleagues to switch off their mics because it will affect the presentation. Microphones to be muted. Colleagues, for this presentation, we're also joined by Mr. Dabo Hotsaing, who's the program manager in the KZN region, where majority of our numbers are coming from. Hello, colleagues. Mr. Fanny, are you on the, I think Mr. Situka will also be, if he's still around, can add.
I'm on the line.
And respond, yes, all right. Colleagues, thank you. I think it's been 2 years or so before our last interaction. I think it was in Bramfontein where we were invited to present. I joined you with my colleagues from Gauteng, from KZN, and I think Northern Cape.
That's
All right,
right.
thanks.
That's right.
Thanks again. During that session, there were critical issues that came up, but for this presentation today, we had received a list of questions from SADA, all right? And the presentation focuses on that, but it doesn't stop people from asking. And of course, our email addresses and contact details are, hello?
Sorry, Akona, could you just close your file explorer so that the presentation can show?
File Explorer.
Yes. So we're only seeing your menu, not your presentation itself.
We're seeing your folder, not the actual PowerPoint.
The presentation, yes.
Oh, I thought you were seeing, I don't know how to, let me
open, close and open again. Maybe that will sort out the problem.
Has it sorted it out?
No.
All right. Let me
Okay,
try.
to resolve the problem, stop the screen share and then open your PowerPoint presentation and screen share that.
Has it been resolved now? Can
Not
it
yet.
not?
I think, Akona, let's do it slowly. Is your PowerPoint presentation open? Let's start there. If it is, then go to Zoom and do screen share.
Okay, to Zoom, share screen, and then can you see it now?
That's right. There we go.
All right.
Got it.
Put it in presentation mode.
All right. Okay. Thanks, colleagues. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes, we can see it now.
All right. Colleagues, thank you. I've indicated that I've been joined by, for this presentation, it's Mr. Fanny Situka and Debo Hotsaing from the KZN program, and he had attended our previous session. Colleagues, for this session, a list of questions had been sent to respond to the criteria given in law of the eligibility criteria in terms of disability-related grants, which is the disability grant, which takes a huge quanta of our work, care dependency grant, which we are also experiencing good news coming up in terms of regulatory reforms, and the grant in aid. Those we refer to as disability-related grants. And those grant type of the products that I'm going to give you, you'll see they're unique because they require an assessment by a medical officer, all right? Let's start, as introduced, Akona Mbombo is my name. Colleagues, this is the outline of the presentation. The purpose is basically here to, as invited, respond to the inquiries that are forwarded by SADA, but also to appraise colleagues of the regulatory reforms that are coming up through the published draft regulations. All right, colleagues will touch a bit on the legislative framework that is governing the space of social assistance disability. All right, we'll talk about the types of grants and the products. I'm sure we've seen the additional allocations by the Minister of Finance in terms of disability-related grants as well. Colleagues will talk about the eligibility, which I believe is the crux of today. Colleagues, SASSA's decision points in disability-related grants, we'll talk to that. We'll just browse through the grants business process model, meaning to respond to that space, what do I do when I want to apply for these grant types? Colleagues will also talk about our attempts as the agency to improve the quality of our assessments, meaning our technical quality assurance program. The remedies should an application be adverse, we'll talk to that. The areas of concern that we also have, but also that might be raised during questions and clarity-seeking areas. We hope that we'll respond to a majority of them. The request had also been that we talk to the 5-year period in terms of grant amounts. I'll link the 2021 ones to the lapsing of temporary disability grants, and will provide the update on the lapsed cases that were lapsed on the 31st of December. And indeed, beautiful work has been done on our side on that front, and we hope to strengthen that initiative with the assistance of our partners in the form of our stakeholders like the SADA delegates. Colleagues, I will talk to the proposed regulatory reforms. As I've said, the purpose is clear. Colleagues, I will try and make my offering very succinct. Colleagues, we like to highlight the issue of the legislative framework. So, because it provides the basis from which we work from. Of course, the Constitution, colleagues, in 27(1)(c) assures that people have the right to access social assistance services, social security, which within that there's social assistance, which is non-contributory in posture. So with that, as SASSA, we cannot turn back people seeking to apply for our grants, and yet to strive that we don't only provide access to them, but also quality services that reflect an organization that believes in their inherent dignity. And the manner in which we offer our services is very crucial. Colleagues, we are guided by the Social Assistance Act. Act 13 of 2004 is amended with its regulations, the SASSA Act that established the agency and the inspectorate. Colleagues, I want to highlight the Promotion of Administrative Justice Act. So when we formulate, that is usually where entities like health and SASSA are litigated upon. In summary, PADRA tests whether are we just in the service offering that we do, are we fair, are we just, can you provide the individualized reasons? Our previous encounter with the courts was that you cannot just provide umbrella reasons for an individual's application. So we must provide individualized reasons for any administrative decision that we take. So it becomes very, very crucial that when we take an administrative decision, we're in a position as demanded by PADRA to provide such reasons. Colleagues, per year, there are a lot of PAYA applications, and especially on persons seeking to challenge our decisions. So they have access to the service offering through the documentation that is contained there. And as I've indicated, colleagues, our folders as well, if one uses PAYA to apply and access information, then they would be able to also appraise the assessment that was undertaken with the intention of certification of social assistance disability, meaning the recommendation by the medical officer. Colleagues, there's the POPI Act. Now and then we are called upon by research institutions, by other people wanting access to our databases. The sole reason why people give us their details, their medical information, is for the intention of a grant application, colleagues. So we cannot, without responsibility, disclose the names and the personal details of the people who are applying for our grant. Colleagues, can I pause there and request that we pause we mute our microphones, because I cannot, I think audibility is affected. Colleagues, okay, thank you. Colleagues, there is also, I was talking about the responsibility that is the agency. We must treat the information with confidentiality. And indeed, all our SASSA staff are expected to abide by the code of confidentiality, and we may not, under any circumstances, disclose the names of the people applying for our grants loosely, but with responsibility, we need to handle the information. Colleagues, PEPUDA speaks to the unfair discrimination, and I would like to highlight an example of that. And we always say to our stakeholders, our staff, our assessors, in conjunction using with the refugees, that colleagues, it started a while back, I think, with the challenge on refugees with disabilities. I think it came from Scalabrini. I remember I was still in the Western Cape then. There's a place called the Ark with the Angolan refugees who were not in the, so we were challenged, we lost that challenge. And to date, refugees do qualify for disability-related grants, should they be found to be meeting all the eligibility criteria. Colleagues, the honors to, when we interact with our assessors, they panic and say, but how can you then burden me with the responsibility of checking if someone's a refugee or not? And that is not the responsibility of clinicians, but that of SASSA. It's an administrative responsibility of SASSA, and you'll see in terms of the administrative issues that are taken into account when we make decisions. So we tell the assessors upfront that their role is to appraise in terms of disability. The PFMA colleagues, we spend in this program approximately 150 million in assessing for disability, contracting health practitioners, especially in particular doctors, because the law as it stands now speaks to doctors, with 150 colleagues, not 50. But colleagues, we also do transfers in excess of 2 billion month in, month out due to disability related grants. So that calls upon that as program managers and our bosses, that we use the public funds with responsibility, that we infer effectiveness on how they are spent, they are directed to the people that they are meant for. And indeed, our value proposition gives us the framework in that we must pay the right social grant at the right time, place, to the right bed, and njalo. So paying the right social grant at the right time, to the right person at the right time, place, and njalo. So colleagues, key to us, because all our grants are definite, but for the right person, it relies largely on a person being certified to be given to be certified as having a social assistance disability. I'm lamenting social assistance was what we're going to talk to. Social Assistance Act does not demand occupation-specific assessments, colleagues. It also doesn't also expect your objective assessment tests and so on, but relies on the subjective articulation of the doctor, depending on what is before the doctor at the time. So, colleagues, Social Assistance Act in definition defines assessment as the actual physical examination, with the intention of making a recommendation towards a grant, all right? And also it has a corresponding meaning, as it says, I'm not reading as word by word in law, but it says the appraisal of available, clinical information with the intention of making a recommendation towards a grant in the absence of a person being assessed. So colleagues, it says by a medical officer or practitioner. We'll see the reform that talks to that. So as you can understand that other legislation dealing with disability, they require all scientific tests to substantiate, the plausibility of the information that is tabled. On the SASSA side, should the argument of the assessor colleague be clinically plausible, be congruent, as SASSA, and it's congruent with respect to the actual medical condition, the activity limitation mapping, and the recommendations of a grant, we will not question that. As long as there's clinical plausibility, it's congruent, we do not expect our medical officers to say, I've done this kind of standardized assessment tests, doesn't demand that there must be a presence of specialist reports at all times, but we rely on the subjective articulation of the assessor, depending on the presentation of each case. So it becomes difficult, colleagues, to give umbrella responses. When you are asked, do people with epilepsy, for example, qualify for a grant? Do people with hypertension qualify for a grant? It becomes very difficult because each case differs, and we rely on the subjective presentation of the case by an assessor looking at issues of clinical plausibility and congruence. But however, if there are tests that are scientific that are done or standardized assessments like MODEPS, VALPA, and so on, an assessor is more than welcome to reference those. I may say that, for an example, there's a global assessment of functioning that was done by Peter Paneri in Falkenberg, and their articulation was safe. Now the assessor is strengthening their assertion or their presentation of the case using expert reports from other clinicians. So that's the posture, colleagues, of Social Assistance Act. And largely, the clinical information we talk to, we rely largely on the public healthcare system. So unlike other legislative prescripts and other institutions, we have the comfort of going to buy the required clinical information, contracts with occupational therapists, contract neurologists, and so on. We rely on what is available within the public health domain, within the Social Assistance Act. So we do not have budgets to order or to procure expert reports within this environment. These are grant amounts. As we have seen, I think that they will be increasing as of the 1st of April due to the pronouncement by the Minister of Finance. Highlighted in red, colleagues, are disability-related grants. All right, which SADA representative through Melanie had requested that let's talk to these and see what are care dependency grants, what are disability grants, what are granting aids. All right, colleagues, it's 1,860 for care dependency grant. For disability grant, it's 1,860. For the granting aid is 440. Colleagues, without even going to how it's worded in law, let's try and unpack probably what's a care dependency grant, colleagues, and we'll talk in the eligibility criteria. All right, colleagues, a care dependency grant is a grant due to from someone to zero from birth to the age of 18 years, whom due to their disability require permanent care. All right, there's a all there in support services. Support services is not defined in law, and we had registered that with the policymakers. So we assess on the basis of SASSA, on the basis of permanent care requirement. All right, so from 0 to 18, does this person, the line of inquiry that our assessors should respond to in this grant type is whether does this child require permanent care or not? So at an overall base, that's what a care dependency grant is all about. And colleagues, there's a unique way that government has responded in terms of what we'll talk about later, in terms of income thresholds. The income threshold of a care dependency grant for any caregiver or parents is rather elevated compared to that of a child support grant. All right, and we'll talk to those later on. Colleagues, there is also the disability grant. As I've said, it takes quite a huge quantum of our work. We've seen people losing jobs, the increase in chronic illnesses, and the misunderstanding of it, that people, when they have any medical condition, they then approach the agency. I would like to link that statement with the fact that we can't really turn back people because it's their constitutional entitlement. So colleagues, the line of inquiry here that we must respond to is whether a person, due to their medical condition, impairment, are they able to meet the requirements of open labor market? That's the crux of it, all right? We are not arguing whether someone has a disability or not, whether someone has a medical condition, but the demand is that a person must be able, not to meet the demands of the open labor. As I've said, colleagues, it doesn't demand an occupation specific. You will see in the wording, they say by the virtue of any occupation. And when I talk to disability grant, I'll also talk to some of the dynamics that we face in rolling out grant. Colleagues, there's also the granting aid. In an overall, the granting aid, colleagues, is a supplement grant that is given to people already in receipt of a disability grant, of a war veterans grant, and of old age grant, whom due to their disabilities, colleagues, or disability, require regular attendance from another person. Colleagues, over the years, there's been concerns in terms of the granting aid. It's been miscommunicated, but it's also been misunderstood. I come from an era where people were told that the grant for the elderly, it's grant to be applied for by people who take care of the elderly, but also that it's a grant for people who are bedridden, all right? Which is not accurate, colleagues. The law demands that it must be someone who requires regular attendance. And a few years ago, we had realized that there was an underspend in this grant type. So we linked our disability grant assessment forms to the granting aid. So as the assessor is assessing whether someone is able to work or not, meet the demands of work or not, then we demand that the assessor must also articulate whether do they think this person will require regular attendance. It doesn't matter whether, colleagues, it's a temporal disability grant award or a permanent disability grant award. It is a supplement grant, as I've said. When the main grant goes away, then the granting aid will also fall away. So we try to improve our numbers, and we also try to demystify the understanding, in a sense that we then also would include people, SASSA staff, interest groups, to say it's not a grant for people who are permanent, who are bedridden. There are a lot of people who aren't regular attendants who are not necessarily bedridden. I can think of someone in a wheelchair, all right? And someone, colleagues, people who are coming to say, I want to apply because I take care for so and so. No, this grant type, colleagues, is given to the index person. Meaning, if I'm in receipt of a disability grant as an applicant, the additional 440 will be given to me. Then I can navigate the need for regular attendance as the index person. Meaning, if I go to town, if someone pushes me, I can give that person 20 rands. But also the intention of the guy who made the law as well, maybe was to also not to get into the space of minimum wage and so on. Because it is me as a person with a disability who is given this 440. If I need someone to help me on a particular engagement or activity, then I can then use that 440 to incentivize the need for regular attendance. I hope that one is clear, colleagues. All right. Colleagues, the posture of legislation in terms of social assistance disability is more on the medical model and not necessarily on the social model of disability. And you'll see that at times in the grant and aid assessments, we encourage that the need for regular attendance may be in part, by contextual issues. So we do allow some leverage in terms of the social proponents on the grant and aid that a person may, or the assessor may even explore. Because I always say, taking a bath in Waterkloof and taking a bath in Mount Frere could be two different things, fetching of water and all those things. So the grant and aid, if it talks the navigation of the terrain when I'm going town, it might not be the same as in Cape Town or Pretoria as well. That's why we say we want to contract assessors who know the environmental issues in the grant and aid, who know environmental, especially the health capacity or the healthcare system capacity to alter the health states of individuals with the intention of improving function. All right. So, colleagues, let's go to what the law says. The prescribed age is 18 to 59. A person owing to physical or mental disability, I want to say condition there. All right. Unfit by the virtue of any service, employment, or I want to highlight any service, employment, or profession, the means needed to enable him or her to provide for his or her maintenance. All right. If you highlight the virtue of any service, colleagues, it means that you will not undertake per se occupation-specific assessment. Just to think of other occupation-specific assessments, let's say workman's compensation. If I fall ill, I will be assessed against my current occupation at SASSA. And the line of inquiry there would be, am I still able to meet the demands of my current occupation? If not, is there any reasonable accommodation that SASSA can assist me with? What rehabilitation do I need to undergo? Can I be accommodated in maybe in a lighter duty format or lesser demanding? I see a hand, colleagues. Should I proceed, colleagues? I see a hand, Andre Foslo. Colleagues, this is what the law says.
Yeah, sorry, I just raised it. You can proceed. I just raised it for later.
Okay. All right. So this is what the law demands, and I'm saying what we understand when we unpack the law is that there must be presence of activity limitation. All right. Now, the questions that our doctors, our assessors usually ask: what happens to someone who has a master's degree, who has a PhD degree? But our law says by the virtue of any say, we are not undertaking occupation-specific assessment. And we do understand that that presents a challenge within the social assistance, environment. But we also do understand that work can be classified to light, medium, heavy, and very heavy. So if you look at the basic, like something like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the basic needs would relate to issues of nutrition and so on. So my understanding has always been, if you assess some of heavy physical labor or heavy demanding, be it mental or otherwise, then you would have covered other spectrums of work. What we also don't want our assessors to be saying, but you can do that kind of, and you have a master's degree of education. Why can't you go and work as a clerk? Now we view that as additional conditionality because our legislation says by the virtue of any service. Now, when you point someone to the ability to work as a clerk, already you are introducing something else that is outside of the law. You're assessing them against clerical engagement. So we do highlight that you must measure the presence of, activity limitation as a result of, and it's always safer to someone who's working population that you assess against the baseline entry of gainful employment or open labor market. All right.
Excuse me, Akona. Can we just ask people to please mute their microphones?
All right.
Thank you.
Colleagues, can you please mute your microphones? All right, let me continue. Colleagues, people must be unable to meet the demands of open labor market employment, and we encourage the issue of treatment, because we encourage optimal treatment where applicable. There are instances where our people do not have, a healthcare system that can optimally treat them. Colleagues, let me stop there. Please, colleagues, mute your microphones. All right.
May I suggest that we just name people who might not be aware that their microphones are actually switched on?
All right, I cannot see them on my side. Maybe.
Okay. Beauty's iPhone. Beauty, can you please mute your microphone? And Tanya Abrams, sir.
All right, colleagues, we also encourage the issue of optimal treatment where applicable. Colleagues, can we mute our phones?
Rashaleen. Let's try again, Akona. Sorry for that interruption.
Right. Colleagues, there's also an issue that of treatment where a person, for an example, our form would talk to is the person optimally treated. If not, is our SASSA recommending optimal treatment and so on, and we demand them to specify which ones. But if the healthcare system is unable to, and it's proven that this person has been accessing the public healthcare system, but they're not optimally treated, all right? We do find those in epilepsy presentations, for example, where a person is suboptimally treated, and we demand our assessors that they don't write anti-epileptic drugs. We want to see the dosages and optimization. So there are instances where assessor picks up that the person is experiencing seizures because they are suboptimally treated, for an example. We call upon our assessors not to be punitive on people who are accessing the healthcare system, but not optimized, all right? So colleagues, there's also behaviors that in terms of policy, you might not want to encourage, of people who refuse to partake in a treatment that we know is effective, but due to treatment-seeking behaviors, refuse to undertake. So that presents dilemmas in our space. Someone who's a known defaulter, for an example, who refused, for an example, to partake in antiretroviral therapy. What do you do? All right, is it an issue of capacitation? Is it an issue of counseling? What do I do when I see someone who's presenting with severe forms of disability because they are refusing to partake in antiretroviral therapy? All right, those are judgment calls that sometimes present with challenges. All right, at times also, colleagues, we get into a space where substances are the cause, and an assessor knows that should a client stop using those substances, that clients will present better. An example is acute psychosis with the youth currently, taking crystal meth that makes them go psychotic. What do we do? And it hasn't triggered anything that is permanent, that is chronic in character. All right, so the duration of the disability grant, colleagues, is 6 to 12 months. So the disability grant, colleagues, the disabling picture must prevail from 6 to 12 months, and we say that is a temporal disability grant award. All right, or it must be in excess of 12 months, it must be permanent. Permanent doesn't mean permanent in our world. It means there is an option to say permanent with a review in so many years, permanent without a review, because we also want to differentiate for people wherein the prognosis is really poor. With those people who have reached what we call maximum medical improvement. There's no clinical intervention that can improve their health state that is directly correlated to function. All right. Colleagues, the applicant should not refuse employment which is within his or her capacity, from which he can generate income to provide fully or partially for his maintenance. Should not, without good reason, refuse to undergo the necessary medical or treatment recommended by a medical officer. I've just made an example where a medical officer will make a recommendation of someone to stop taking substances, and because the medical officer would be anticipating better health outcomes. But if someone refuses, then that's a dilemma on our side. Or if someone refuses to partake in antiretroviral therapy, for an example, what do we do? So do we also want to encourage such people? I think that is covered within the law. There's a statement that a disability grant is not a basic income grant. It's about employability and not availability of employment. So when you say, but you can work as a clerk, am I going to give that person? But if I know that I assessed that the baseline pyramid or the open labor market that is at the base, then I'm covered, that I would have covered all other spheres. And you'll see when you're talking about the decisions, and then should a person find colleagues, find employment, we'll exclude them on the basis of income and not on certification of disability. So many times in this space, we are challenged. We've had these discussions with my colleagues where they say, but this guy goes to university. How can you give them a grant? All right. But my argument has always been universities are artificial environments in a sense that they have disability units, all right, that ensure that people with disabilities do function in those environments. In the real world, there is no disability unit, all right? So let's assess people for social assistance disability, and should they meet the criteria, we recommend positively. If in future they find employment, the onus is on them then to declare the income, and then we will exclude them on the basis of income threshold and not certified them to be having a disability, all right? And that's also a developmental path that we encourage to people, because that's someone. And there was also another case within SASSA where we have an employee who used to get a grant, and now other colleagues were feeling like it means that this person didn't qualify. And my argument was there were reasonable accommodations undertaken in terms of the EE that we undertook to hire this person. So the statement is not necessarily accurate. This person was not meeting the criteria. They were, but the onus also, the state wants to also hire persons with disability, and we had to reasonably accommodate that person. Colleagues, there's also the care dependency grant, granted to a parent, primary caregiver, foster parent of a child from 0 to 18 years, who requires or receiving permanent care or support due to physical or mental disability. The child must not be cared in an institution funded or run by the state. And colleagues, I wanted to highlight this one. The draft regulations, something that, as far as I can remember, is bringing in the ability of the agency to allow the space to review care dependency grant. As it stands currently, we expect our assessors to articulate whether the disability will persist until the child is 18. What do we do with temporal incapacitation? Now, currently, should the draft regulations come in their formal shape, we will have the space of a temporal CDG, but not directly award the temporal CDG, but an assessor would say, I recommend a care dependency grant. Please review it within this period, but that period must be within 5 years. So we've been fighting for that for the past 10 years, if I can recall, colleagues, because at times we excluded children on the basis that their requirements for permanent care might last for a year, might last for 2 years, might last for 3 years. But at the same time, there were challenges, if I recall, that were brought in, even during our session in the past, wherein we had a dilemma. When is it appropriate to assess a child with Down syndrome presentation? But now what it means is that if I'm not sure for this child, but I know this child has a diagnosis of Down syndrome, but I cannot as yet appreciate their developmental milestones and delays thereof and the functional impact. As an assessor, I have the space to say, I grant this child for review in a year or 2 years. So that's really, we are looking forward to the coming of that, because those children that whom would otherwise say, please attend with the child after 2 years or a year, but those will fall away now, because now care dependency grants can be reviewed. Colleagues, there's the GIA or the granting aid that I spoke to. It's clear, owing to her, his or physical, mental condition, is certified by medical officers requiring regular attendance by another person. You see, it's regular attendance. It's not saying that someone must be bedridden. Someone with an autism spectrum disorder who's an adult, that guy doesn't necessarily is bedridden. Someone who has chronic schizophrenia, frequent relapses, admissions, and so on, is not bedridden, but they require regular attendance, colleagues. Colleagues, decisions that SASSA makes, their points or the pillars that SASSA makes a decision on the basis of applications. One is the considered opinion of a medical officer on the client's ability to function, and asset and means testing or threshold. Colleagues, I would like to just share that in terms of asset, testing, it must be understood that the primary residence of an individual is not taken into account. So it's zero rated. So colleagues, the primary residence of someone, let's say I stay in Landadni and I want to apply for a grant and there's no income that I derive from that house. I'll say I live in Landadni, but I do not derive an income. This is my house. So the primary residence, colleagues, is not taken into account. What I also wish to highlight, colleagues, is what government has responded to in terms of the care dependency grant. The means threshold is rather high, all right? Sis Vuiso, are you calling me? All right, and I'm unable to pick up your call. And the means of a parent or caregiver who has a child in receipt of with severe forms of disability, all right, is rather elevated compared to the child support grant. And indeed, that's a government response to the cost of disabilities, all right? Colleagues, there's also what we refer to as permissible deductions. The medical aid deductions are taken into account. Let's say I earn 5,000, but when I declare on application that I pay 2,000 for my medical aid, that is deducted from my primary income, and that is built into our system. But there's also, colleagues, deductions for rates and taxes, I think also retirement annuities, funeral covers. Am I leaving anything, Mr. Fani? In terms of permissible deductions, Debucho, would you like to add? But colleagues,
No, I think you have it all, Akona. What can happen is outside of this session, we can share the regulations with them. They will be able to pick it up from the regulations themselves at their own time.
All right. We'll also share, colleagues, the table for the income and asset threshold as well. Melanie, through you, will share that table. It's usually reviewed financially by a financial year. What is the maximum income threshold for a person who wants to apply for disability-related grants? It's there, and that's government response. And we encourage our people to declare those permissible deductions so that all costs related to disability in the deduction of a medical aid contribution is then factored in. All right? Colleagues, this is the application. A person applying for a disability-related grant, there are two categories of those people. And we want, because in the value of proposition, we said it's paying the right social grant to the right person at the right time, place, and jalo. And having looked at our application pipeline, there are two categories of people. And because the basis is the existence of a medical condition, medical conditions that are managed within the healthcare system, all right? So there's a two category of clients. One is an inpatient, colleagues, in Grootes care. The intention, because we want to say the right time as the agents. So we've gone into partnerships with such institutions and we continue to pursue cooperative agreements with healthcare system in a sense that an inpatient pre-discharge, we want to go into those healthcare systems, empower the doctors that it would be ideal that this person, before they are discharged, that already their assessment is done. Just to set an example, in Grootes care, the nucleus of our assessment space is the social work department, where our forms are available. All right. So a doctor managing someone pre-discharged there would require an assessment form from the social work department, completed, but it's not given to the client. SASSA goes to pick up those assessment forms. All right. So the right time, can you see, on discharge, that person is already assessed for SASSA purposes. They only go to SASSA to undertake an application that could be done through a procurator as well, on behalf of the person. We also, colleagues, in the pipeline, I'll talk to also reforms that we're talking to. We're trying to explore the issue of an online application. So such a person whose assessment is done, in the future, there might be no need for that person to come to SASSA because the online application channel is open. We have assessed that person at the right time, at the right place, you know, and with dignity. Colleagues, there's people I'm not sure, there's people who haven't muted their microphones. Please, colleagues, mute your microphones. All right. So our reforms are always driven by our line of sight, which is our value proposition. Such a client, in terms of time, we assess them pre-discharged, quality assessment, because they are assessed from all the clinical information that is available there where they were admitted. All right. Colleagues, the gatekeeping talks to our marginal resources and our attempt to say, assess you within a space of 3 months once, not unless you bring a referral information or clinical information that has a date subsequent to the previous assessment. Because our disability grant form assessment form is valid for 3 months, we cannot assess you on the same clinical baseline. Colleagues, in the realm of medical booking, and I think it's what we're doing, because we wanted colleagues, I can't hear, someone's mic is on. All right. Colleagues, in the past, people use, I can't hear, I can't, the mic for someone.
Akona, if I can assist you, if you look at the participant list, simply hover over the name of the person and you can mute them as host.
Melanie, can you do that for me? Because I can't see.
I can't at the moment because you're the host.
Oh.
Sorry, Akona. Yeah.
My
But you
problem,
can
do you know what I don't
Sorry
have
to interrupt, but as host, you can mute the entire room.
Everybody.
So just go on that control, mute the entire room. As host, you've got the authority to do that.
Colleagues, I hope I managed, because I'm not used to Zoom, so I don't want to do something that it upsets, you know, the whole presentation. Colleagues, in the space of medical bookings, in the past, colleagues, you'll see when our social grant disability management, it's really terrible now.
Okay, I can tell you now that the noise is coming from Stephen Leon Cachet.
Yes, can you continue doing that? Leon, please.
Stephen Leon Cachet, please mute your microphone immediately or we will remove you from the meeting.
Okay, I'll just have to find the mute button. I'm not used to Zoom meetings either. So I'll just give me a couple of minutes and I'll mute myself.
You'll find the mute button on your dialog box, bottom left.
Okay.
All right. Colleagues, I've been with SASSA since the 2nd of January 2007. And when we came, when SASSA was introduced, I came from the space of the Department of Health in the Western Cape healthcare system. I had worked in the Work Assessment Center at Grooterskloof. I'd worked at Falkenberg. And people used to just randomly come, even outpatients, colleagues, you randomly come and say, we want a grant. And that caused a bit of discomfort and lack of structure on how these were done. When SASSA came, we came up with what we call social grants disability management model. Number one, we wanted to understand the service demands for social grants. All right. And secondly, we wanted to monitor the time wait before our people were assessed. So we came up with the medical booking element, with the medical, the gatekeeping element. And we adopted a principle that we never want to see our people waiting for excess of a month, meaning 30 days awaiting an assessment before such an expression is made to SASSA. So we think any outpatient colleagues must approach SASSA expressing that they wish to apply for disability-related grant. So we schedule these people, our clients, and we monitor their time wait. And in the recent past, we've developed what we call the EMAS system, which is an electronic booking space that we do. It monitors the 30-day time wait for us. It monitors the time wait. We're able to monitor transactions on a desktop basis. It flags those clients that when they come, we're already scheduling them in excess of a month. So those are clients whom we will tell will confirm your appointment for an assessment telephonically, because we must still look at the capacity of assessors that we have on the ground. There are reforms in that as well, colleagues, as we speak. I think GovTech Chat is working on that, where we also don't want people to come to SASSA to express a need to apply, because we must then communicate the assessment booking for them. I think Fanny is crucial in that they are working on a telephonic channel to request for a booking towards an assessment. So basically kickstarting the application process telephonically. You only come in an assessment venue to be assessed. And even on that, we are exploring other alternatives of assessing people. And the discussions at hand, what happens when someone has comprehensive medical information at Grooteskier? And the assessment definition allows us to assess that person in their absence. It's quite risky, colleagues, because of fraud that we have experienced, but we are exploring it. As we speak in the Western Cape to deal with those backlogs, we are doing paper-based assessments. Our clients who have medical folders in the healthcare system are being assessed from those medical folders in their absence. Where it is felt that there's still a need for additional information, we call them, all right, and ask them to submit such information. Colleagues, for that to be effective, or for any disability management program at SASSA within the regions to be successful, it speaks to a good stakeholder working relationship with the healthcare system, all right? There is medical assessment that is done, colleagues, by a medical officer currently, and in the future, we've made an input that, however, in the definition of an assessment, please rather go with health practitioner as defined in the Health Professions Council of South Africa. So that means that in the future, allied health professionals like occupational therapists, physiotherapists, and so on, will now be able to make those assessments to conclusion should the draft regulations come in the current form and shape. So it's not a medical officer only now exclusively. That OT, that physio will complete real time the assessment. Once more, we anticipate that the time issue in terms of when people are waiting for assessment, will be able to keep that to minimum. And then the person colleagues will be able to apply for a grant where they feel like there's a social relief of distress. We'll talk to internal reconsideration and lodging of appeals, because should you be adverse, the findings, or you're not happy, you have the right to apply for internal reconsideration in terms of 18.1 amendment. All right, and I'll talk to those colleagues. I'll only focus on the application column for now. Let's continue. Colleagues, we had institutionalized technical quality assurance, wherein we wanted to understand our environment better. Which doctor we will try and map, which challenges our doctors facing, because we want to make sure that the assessments are done and they comply with the required standards. We want to determine the areas where medical assessors require training, emphasis, and further training. And in the past, colleagues, we had flagged areas such as mental health and so on. That's why in the past, we had even highlighted our key topics around mental health, around autism, basically the hidden disabling conditions. We would invite expert speakers, would invite some of your members to come and talk to our assessors for them to understand the presentations of such people presenting with hidden disabling conditions. But the crux also that we found, colleagues, is that our doctors are presented with people without clinical information as they are expected to. How do you assess someone with a hidden disabling condition? Whereas the clinical information at your disposal is very shallow. All right, we'll talk to that. To identify potentially fraudulent disability-related granted recommendations, but also to improve towards continuous improvement, colleagues, of standards of our assessments. To also conduct assessments when required. There are assessments where we feel like, no, this one is not good. This is an exclusion error. We'll then commission a second assessment by another assessor. That's our technical quality assurance initiative. And in the future, we hope, colleagues, we'll deepen this in that we will institutionalize our technical quality assurance initiatives through medical symposiums that are CPD accredited, that will be able to do through specialists in particular areas. For an example, I've always been wishing that we could have coming to talk about work and functional assessment, which is a specialist area within the occupational therapy profession. I've tried to bridge that gap. I'm an occupational therapist myself, but before and then, we have done a lot of good work, colleagues. Colleagues, the remedies should an application be adverse, you have the right to apply for internal reconsideration mechanism within 90 days of gaining knowledge of an adverse outcome. And the baseline that we use is the date in which a person was informed of the outcome of the primary assessment. Should you still, be not satisfied with the outcome of the IRM application within 90 days of gaining knowledge, you have the right to apply to the independent tribunal. And post that, you may elect to approach the judiciary for a judicial review. To improve access here, colleagues, what we have done, our offices, as you disengaged upon an application, all right, our staff on issuing of an outcome letter, and even our outcome letter, does lament on those remedies, meaning you disengage, but you open the possibility of a remedy in terms of 18.1 amendment, that you have the right to apply for internal reconsideration. As you issue the outcome of internal reconsideration and disengage, you have the right to open the possibility of an appeals tribunal application. As we give the IRM, you have the right to then explore other remedies. So, colleagues, we believe that's just, that's fair, and the reasons throughout these platforms as to why certain administrative decisions are taken will always be tabled. Colleagues, there was also a demand to say, please highlight areas of concern. Colleagues, over the years, the great concern one has always had is the lack of clear clinical baseline. So to try and bridge that, clients presenting for assessment, we feel like if you're assessing someone in the absence of clear clinical baseline in the form of information, that might lead to inclusion and exclusion errors. It might lead to poor assessments. It might lead at times to serial temporal disability grant awards. Colleagues, as mitigation as SASSA, we are continuously engaging with the Department of Health. We have placed the referral form on our website so that people don't need to come to our office. We continuously engage with the Department of Health to avail clinical information. And we are saying our ideal place to undertake assessment is basically a healthcare center, because we are confident that it meets the standards of rendering a health service in terms of ventilation, in terms of planning, in terms of disinfection and quality assurance issues. So that's what we are attempting to do, colleagues. We are attempting at all times to enter into cooperative agreements so that we formalize what we need from the Department of Health. Colleagues, it's been a struggle because when we approach health at national, they say the provincial Department of Health are autonomous. let's go to them directly. All right. So what we've been doing is to approach the Provincial Department of Health. We have an existence memorandum of agreement in the KZN area, but that is also not provision largely of assessors, because we largely contract assessors in that region. But they assure us with the venues to conduct assessment. They assure us that they will provide referral information in clinic folders where possible. And in other rural clinical settings, like I remember I went to a hospital in Moscow where we are failing to recruit any assessors, and the health system can come in and do assess. Colleagues, we do have SLA arrangement with the district healthcare system in the Western Cape, your institutions like Grooteskier, Red Cross. We do have colleagues. Hello? Can you assist where the noise is coming from?
And does Denise Griffs?
Yay.
No. Colleagues,
Please mute.
the issue of
Hi.
cooperative agreements with
Hi,
health.
everyone. She's not here.
Please
She's
mute
gone out.
yourself. Denise
Colleagues.
Reeves, please mute your
Okay.
microphone
Is everything
immediately.
all right?
Colleagues, we've been spending a lot of time in that area to the extent that
Who's funeral?
I've been moving across.
Oh, shame.
Akona,
sorry,
please one
ma'am.
moment. Denise Greaves, please mute yourself immediately.
Oh, okay. Oh, shame, man.
Akona, can you please
Sorry.
remove Denise from this meeting?
I
Okay.
can't, I am
All
sorry.
right.
Just hover over the name and click remove.
Okay.
I can't even see her.
Shame, man. Okay. Okay.
Participants.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Okay.
Denise Green, please mute your microphone.
I think I've muted Denise.
Yes, you
Yes,
have.
thank you.
All right, colleagues. I was spending a bit of time because I wanted people to understand. We work in an environment where even a small hospital in the rural Eastern Cape, a small healthcare system, a community wants to engage us. We don't think twice. We go to them because we want to constantly improve our relations with the healthcare system. So when we realized obstacles at the provincial level, we also encourage our local office managers to all improve their stakeholder partnerships. Let's say I'm a local office manager in Rustenburg. If there's a local hospital, we encourage our local office managers to be talking to their CEOs of hospitals. If a particular hospital in Taung say they need training, they need an information session, we jump because we understand that the strength of our program lies with the proximity that we have with the healthcare systems colleagues. So that is our stance. I think my principals have allowed me to do that because they've understood the importance of that. So it's not that, no, that's a hospital in somewhere in the rural Northwest, you can't go there. We even do our sessions in the evening, colleagues, because we want to bridge the gap, because where we want to go is the clinical information that would improve the quality. What happens now in the serial award of TDGs? Dr. A assesses Akona. They say, Akona, please come with an OT report. I can see the activity limitations, but I don't know whether this situation can be reversed, whether you can be fitted with assistive devices or your health state would be improved. Please, when you come, we are granting you now 6 months temporary disability grant, but the next time they come to Dr. Fanny to assess them, they don't come with this OT report. So Dr. Fanny will give the same benefit of the doubt. But if these people are assessed as part of patient management within the healthcare system, those unnecessary temporary disability grant awards will be averted. And we always say to our doctors, should you see, unfortunately, you need to give beneficence or the benefit of the doubt to our clients, because we know the healthcare system that we work with is not perfect. All right. So colleagues, I wanted to spend a bit of time as the one key challenge that we have. All right. The lack of understanding of the intention of grants. We've been running to mitigate media campaigns, outreach initiatives. There's what is called iClubs. If we are invited, like right now by SADA, we are willing to share the knowledge and the experiences that we have. We do indeed participate in other platforms like the ministerial advisory committees. When we're invited in other platforms, dyslexia, I remember I went to speak to some people a while back. In KZN, Mr. Tsayeng does a lot of work with Autism South Africa and other guys, and I've been privy to also attend those sessions. And we continuously want to highlight the need, the intention of this disability-related grant. We produce posters, and we continuously engage our stakeholders. Our program managers in provinces are continuously profiling our assessors where they have concerns. They go to our health practitioners who are doing assessments. They go and talk to our health practitioners doing referrals. And we like to say, if one, like myself, I go to KZN, I go there to support Mr. Tsayeng. He's the owner and he should own up his space because he understands the intention. So Mr. Tsayeng does also sit in particular platforms. He has informed me that in the past he attends the disability coordinating platforms to the office of the Premier, and that happens nationally, colleagues. Another concern that we have, colleagues, are the long waiting. Okay, let me see. Okay, there's a noise. This was not muted.
Mulanga,
Mulanga.
yes.
Mulanga, I can't see them here.
You can just move the blue, your cursor.
No, I've been trying. Okay, let's continue.
Okay.
Yeah, colleagues, another concern that we've been having, I did speak to a definition of what a backlog is on our side. All right. What we do when we realize there's a threat or the demand, because we book our people, all right, we activate the backlog management strategy. One, the backlog management strategy allows us to increase the number of clients an assessor or a doctor can see in a day in a sitting. We can do it up to 80 because we're responding to a demand instead of a norm of 40 per day. The general manager for grants in that particular province can endorse that. The particular doctors in particular contexts can see clients up to 80. But also, if in a particular office I'm assessing once a week, we request that the local office manager does activate more sessions, let's say twice a week, thrice a week. We can also request the province to also deploy 2 doctors per sitting. That's our backlog management strategy. And we continuously, colleagues, as I've said, engage the Department of Health to undertake some of our assessments. All right? Grace Hospital and other specialist hospitals, children's disabilities, we encourage hospitals dealing with that, like Red Cross, Grace, and Children's Hospital in KwaZulu-Natal, to please undertake some of our assessments. Chest hospitals, for an example, like Brooklyn Chest and somewhere in KZN, they do our assessments. Specialist hospital like Stekfontein in Gauteng, we have engaged with them to say, please do assessments on our behalf, or pre-discharge, please write comprehensive summary discharge sheets for us so that it's easier for us to assess your clients wherever we find them. All right. So colleagues, the issue of long queues at SASSA as well on people wanting to apply for disability-related grants is that we don't want people, should they find themselves in the SASSA office, stand for long. As part of queue management, we then sort our people according to what their needs are. So one, if Akona is on the queue, I want to apply for disability grant, my details are taken, I'm told when should I come for an assessment, I leave, hardly 20 minutes on the line, I leave. But we also trying and effect paper-based assessment from Department of Health folders and placing the referral on the website. So we hope that will eliminate. And as I've said, colleagues, we are exploring platforms such as telephonic booking methodologies and so on that we are trying to, so that we avert people coming into SASSA and dealing with the law. Colleagues, as we have witnessed, the caregivers of children who turned 18, we then wrote a motivation to the minister to say, please, can we undertake these assessments in a paper-based? Because we didn't want our children, when these grants that were endorsed due to COVID would come in our offices. And I mapped to Dai, who's our executive manager, that should we then allow these children, whom we believe have severe forms of disabilities, to come and join those queues, it wouldn't be good, because those children have severe forms of disability, and it will trigger transport costs and compromise the dignity of those families. Transport costs for a child with severe forms of disability in rural areas doesn't just mean a second transport fee. It means you hire the entire bakkie, all right? Now, in the absence of such a family meeting that, they will then use a donkey, use a wheelbarrow, and that is not in alignment with our belief that we're a customer-centric agency that believes in inherent dignity of our people. So we were then endorsed to undertake paper-based assessments. Colleagues, what we are seeing is that as we have undertaken these assessments, people are not returning to undertake applications. We try and communicate with them, but we also have challenges that people have changed addresses because some of them were assessed 15 years ago. So we try and communicate media-wise to our communications, our offices, our local stations, TV, radio stations. So we have tried to do that, colleagues. Colleagues, we also have a challenge that we have scarcity of doctors. And we hope with the changing to health practitioner, that will dilute the concentration to doctors. Especially we have a challenge in rural areas and certain metros with high traffic, colleagues. Colleagues, one of our challenges are inclusion and exclusion errors. Once we have satisfied ourselves that our inclusion and exclusion errors are minimal or minimum, we will then be sure that at least we are rendering a high quality service. And we also want to improve consistency amongst our assessors. Colleagues, there's still persistent fraud. I'm sure you saw recently in Gongoa, in Limpopo, Zanin, there's been some arrests on this grant because people tend to malinga, misrepresent, and so on. One area of concern that we have, colleagues, is SASSA, we don't case manage like contributory social security, other platforms. We don't have a pathway where we manage, we redirect, but in our form, you'd have seen, we attempt at least to say, refer for further treatment. But we would love to refer our people to where we think they can receive further developmental or capacitation opportunities. I think that's one of our challenge, all right? But we try and partner, colleagues, our recent partnership with the Department of Public Works, where there were miscommunication that if you are getting a disability grant, then you do not qualify, or if you participate in a public works program and get a stipend, you will not get your grant. So there's been, so we partnered with the Department of Public Works, and then one of the staff members we have in the Western Cape was actually participant to that. So the activists in me and my colleagues are celebrating that we could see someone who participated in a program that we formed part of, and all of a sudden now she's our colleague, all right? So that was quite, and I wrote an article towards that to celebrate that achievement, colleague, all right? Colleagues, one requirement was, let's see over 5 years, what, as you can see, colleagues, the recipient of grants, I'll start from January 2017, it's 1,373,091, and that's basically disability grants driving. Colleagues, In 2018, it's 1,391,210. In 2019, it's 101,414,785. In January, it's 1,466,871. You'll pick up, colleagues, that in January 2021, it dips because it could be we had lapsed about 210,000 grants that were endorsed between the period of February and 31st of December due to the directive from the minister. All right, colleagues, we can see that the grant recipient is somewhat flat. If these numbers were to increase drastically, the National Treasury writes, colleagues, to Mr. Simon Meshefefe through DAI and say, what is happening? Because, colleagues, the numbers, when you compare to the population dynamics in terms of people with disabilities, the coverage, when you look into these numbers, is rather elevated. All right. And colleagues, year in, year out, we conduct about 600,000 assessments to 650,000 assessments, which then leads to what I spoke about, a bill of about 150 million. Because we can't just simply turn away our people, because the issue of access is a constitutional entitlement. Colleagues, this is the update of the people that were assessed, plus minus 210,000 in December. Then there was a further concession that was made that we ought to reinstate people that are 59 years, people that are getting their grants in combination with the grant in aid because they are requiring regular attendance, people who are receiving their grants through procurators. So that 210,000 colleagues, the baseline then was reviewed to 197,452. All right. Of those, the people who have booked colleagues is about 133,162. All right. And if you see, of the 133,162, to date, we have assessed about 90,376. Of the 90,766, you will see 81,891 has applied. But when you compare the people that we have booked to those that have been assessed, it's an achievement of 68%. It could be, it's a real time. It could be a used data that was somewhat, backwards, but we are trying this change, this picture of assessment of those that are booked. And recently, colleagues, we have seen a change in posture, especially in the Western Cape, where you can see the majority of those labs was coming from. To date, in the past 2 weeks, we have trained up about 100 doctors, colleagues, in that healthcare system who presented for a SASSA session. In the past 14 years, we have not achieved that attendance rate for doctors from the healthcare system in the Western Cape. So we anticipate that that number will improve drastically as our doctors in the Western Cape healthcare system are undertaking these assessments. Colleagues, of those that were assessed, we see 91% of them has applied. And that is an achievement that comes from or stems from intense managing of those that were lapsed in a project format. Regular meetings are arranged to give continuous feedback back and forth from provinces, from districts, from head office to parliament. As we speak, there's a portfolio committee that is looking into this as well. Colleagues, I've been speaking of proposed regulatory reforms. One, I've spoke to it, is the assessment that will allow health practitioners to undertake assessments as opposed to only medical officers. And already when I saw that, we are nearing the implementation of the harmonized assessment tool that has been spoken about for the past 10 years. All right, because now health practitioners will be allowed to undertake these assessments. And we hope that will improve access. All right, provision of review of care dependency grant. I clapped my hands and I stood and I celebrated when I saw that, colleagues. And also the draft regulations bring in the direct application. Once your grant application is adverse, you have the right to directly apply to the appeals tribunal within 90 days of gaining knowledge of an adverse outcome. Now, colleagues, the appeals tribunal has a mandate that they can co-opt additional information. They allow for representation, but also in the past financial year and two or so, they have allowed SASSA to go and talk to their doctors and attorneys so that they can appreciate the judgment call, so that they can give us feedback from a just perspective, from a fair perspective, and whether the reasons that we give are adequate to meet the PAJA requirements. All right, colleagues, I will end there. Thank you. I'm not sure if Fanny would want to add anything, or Mr. Tebogo before we step down for questions.
I think I'm comfortable, Akona. Let's allow the questions to come from the floor and we'll take it from there.
Okay, through you, convener, would then open the floor. I know there was Andre Force and who had a hand up.
May I proceed?
No, true chair.
Okay, thank you. I raised my hand quite early in the presentation. Thank you. I hope this documentation would be available afterwards because a lot of it we couldn't hear. One of my big concerns when I heard it made me jump in my seat. I'm not sure if I understood this correctly, and I hope I anyway. One of the criteria then, as you stipulated, must not be suitable for the open labor market. And I've got a serious problem with this because a lot of our impaired people are suitable for the labor market, but the impairment becomes a disability because we from Blind SA, and I'm sure many other of our disability partners in SASSA, can say that we have many people that are suitable for the open labor market, but they are not getting employed. 97, 98% of visually impaired currently unemployed, they're overqualified. So who's going to decide whether somebody is suitable for the open labor market or not suitable for the open labor market? That's particularly worrying.
Can I make a follow-up question, Andre?
Yeah.
Your constituency, they would need to largely be reasonably accommodated in the open labor market, isn't it?
But that's not happening. So if I'm visually impaired, okay, now because of discrimination, and I'm just using because I'm from Blind SA, we represent that. Yes. I cannot get employment. Would I then get a social grant?
Yes, on our side, Andre, would assess not with conditionalities. We do not look at whether there's available accommodation or not. We assess the case as it presents and to make our pronouncement. Because we don't want to say they are suitable, but we don't know whether that particular area would employ them or would discriminate. We make a judgment call on the basis of the presentation. And we say, yes, most of your people, as I hear you, would then meet our criteria and will be awarded a grant. And should they then get employment, they will fall off on the basis of means.
Okay, so that suitability then, you would then decide, I'm not suitable for the open labor market, or would that not come into play? Because a lot of us are suitable, but we are being discriminated against.
It would come to, the general criteria for employment talks to issues of production speed, you said utilization of public transport, comprehension, and so on. So upon assessing, we would then say you are unable to meet the general criteria of open labor market. But it doesn't stop someone to go and look for work. Should they find such work and derive income from that, the onus is on them to declare that income to SASSA. So should they meet the threshold, then on those bases, they will fall off. All right, I'm not sure if you understood me well.
No, okay, I'll rest my case for this time. I'm saying maybe, but okay, I'll rest my case for some further consultation maybe later at some other stage.
All right.
Thank you.
Chair, I can't see hands.
There's Jacques.
Jacques, your hand was also up.
Thank you, Akona. Just a quick question. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Hypothetically speaking, we've got a situation. My wife was actually declared disabled to work due to a sickness called Meniere's disease, which involves loss of hearing and loss of balance. And obviously she's been to neurologists, ENTs, physiotherapists and the likes. And she was eventually, they gave us the documentation and reports to say she is permanently disabled and there is no possibility of recovery or such, or there's no other further treatment that will alleviate the problem as such. Now, would those documentation be sufficient to apply for disability grant? And then the second thing is, where can we go to in Durban if we need to do an assessment because of the SASSA office in Pinetown being very congested and no social distancing, unfortunately. I don't want to raise it on this forum, but it's a reality and we just want to make sure that we address health issues wisely. I'll listen to your answer. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, Jacques, Mr. Tebogo Tsayeng is on the line. I'm not sure if you are comfortable sharing your email address so that he can note it. He can come into contact with you and then you can arrange. For us, that clinical information is what we want, Jacques. For us, so that our assessor can undertake an assessment from a sound clinical baseline.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Yes,
can I come in?
Yes.
I think, Jacques, to help you a little bit faster, if you get into the SASSA website, you will be able to see on your left-hand side of that website, there is a tab on the left-hand side, as you'll be facing your screen, there is a tab which is referred to as social grant forms. So my advice, it would be, before you even go to a SASSA office, go to the SASSA website, download the medical referral form, take that medical referral form to your treating source. So from what you've just said, you indicated, I've had 3 reports that you have cited, but let one of your treating sources complete that form, take some of those medical reports that you have, those declarations that you have, attach them to that medical referral form. Then the only thing that you need in a SASSA office, which it is not much of an issue, is for you to be able to do a booking, because for you to do a booking, you're not going to be in that office for too long. You just want to secure an appointment to be booked for an assessment. So because you by then you will be having the documents in your hand. So they will book you, they'll give you a date on which you are supposed to be coming to that office with those medical reports, including the medical referral form that will be in your hand, plus any other documents that they will need for you to have an application taken. But the referral form, it is available on the website. Get into the SASSA website, download it, take it to your assessing or your treating doctor and let it be completed.
Okay, thanks,
Thank you.
Sorry, in this case, Fanny, remember, I've appreciated what Jacques has, the comprehensive information. That's why I was referring him to Tebogo, because there's a format that he uses to make such appointment when there's wealth of clinical information.
I understand, Akona, but it will be safe. It will just be safe because we don't know, we haven't seen the documents. So to avoid Jacques going up and down, the best it would be, have the form completed, take the form together with all of those clinical information that you have at your hand.
Thank you. Fanny, just a quick one. We've actually got documentation which we submitted to a life insurer who declared disabled and permanently disabled for work. Now, would that not be sufficient? Does he still need to do an assessment? Can they not just view the paperwork which was done in 2020 when it was finalized?
Unfortunately, Jacques, I think earlier on when Andre raised a question, I think I needed to say to Andre that one of the things that must give you comfort is that with disability, we basically SASSA through the current regulations had opted not to leave everything to our administrators, but to first sought medical advice. So hence, for disability, it's a prerequisite that a SASSA appointed medical officer assesses all that information, because I remember an administrator who has done a course in clerical work and a medical officer who has been to a medical school for 7 years. They are two different people. So it is a compulsory requirement that a SASSA appointed medical officer go through those documents and make a recommendation to us. So we will not be able to just receive and then forge ahead. Unfortunately, it is a requirement, and I apologize for that if it puts any undue hardship on your side.
Fanny, thank you so much for your response. We are satisfied with the answer you've given. It makes sense, and we will then take it up in the fashion that you've described. Thank you so much for a very insightful presentation as well.
Akona, if I may, I see there's a couple of hands up still. I just see
Can you
here in
manage, can you manage them for us?
yes. I just want to ask here in the chat, I've received a question from Bronwood Ward from Shesha Holmes, who asked, she understands that there's the pending change in the payment system, but would facilities would be able to receive grants on behalf of their residents in future?
Okay, I would allow Mr. Fanny to take that one.
Okay.
I would request that you just repeat it, because I missed it a bit. I had network dip as you were talking, so there's some parts of it that I didn't hear.
Okay, she says, I understand there's pending change to the payment system, that facilities such as residential homes will no longer be able to receive the grant payments on behalf of the residents. Is that correct?
Ma'am, that is not correct. I think the only huge change that has happened is that at the moment, new clients that are walking into a SASSA office, we are not encouraging them to a post office card if you are a new client. We are insisting that new clients that walks into a SASSA office, they need to walk in with private bank accounts in their hands. But for institutions, it is not correct. There is no change that has been done on that space.
You can continue managing the hands.
We've got a hand up from Skalk van Sail.
Mr. Van Sail.
Good day. It is Skalk van Sail's wife speaking here, Kathy. We sitting in together from Autism Step Upside. We are adult facility for autistic adults, but we have a planned conference coming up for Autism Month in April, and we sitting in with the purpose of a lot of the parents have questions about SASSA. And a lot of the children, the parents don't know anything about SASSA. Can you guys, the care dependency grant, is that specific just for parents that is sole carers at home? Or is it for parents that have to pay for their children in in school setups that don't have any income at all, so they have no method of paying for their children for school fees at all. Can you just clear that up for me, please? And all of these, is this information available on your webpage at SASSA?
All right. Mrs. Van Steen, the care dependency grant, as we indicated, it's paid to children requiring permanent care. It doesn't say permanent home care. So the care could be anywhere, as long as the care can be transient from home to the special transport that is provided by the uncle to a care center. All right. As long as the permanent care needs are sustained throughout all these spaces. But we must understand that the care dependency grant is means tested. So there is a means threshold that will apply, but also, as I've spoken, there is a permissible deductions, and will also be, as I've said, will be willing to share the means chart, and we will share you and your grants on information. And should you wish to invite us to, or if you're in any province and we have someone who can come to talk to your people, as what Mr. Tebo Khotsang and I have done in the past in KZN, we'd be more than willing to come and either as participants respond directly or as attendees to your session. Thank you.
We will be offering it per Zoom. Will we be able to communicate with you guys on it?
You can give us a link on that date.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we have got a hand up still from Tulani Boyson.
Mr. Tulani, you're more than welcome.
Afternoon. Actually, I'm a woman. I'm not a man.
All right. Sorry, Tulani.
It's not a problem. My question is more similar to the past two questions. I'm a parent in the Eastern Cape in Port Elizabeth. My child was recently diagnosed with autism. He's 5 years old. We have done all the assessments that had to be done to confirm his disability. But I think the question has been answered, because I'm also in the dark in terms of the disability from SASSA. And also the other question that I wanted to ask was, what is the conflict when you claim from SARS and also claiming from the SASSA Disability Fund? Is there a contradiction in those terms? Or what is the procedure? Can you claim for the disability from SASSA if you are actually submitting the returns from SARS? I just need clarity on that. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Tulani, what we would want to appraise once more, in applying for a care dependency grant, what SASSA would want to ascertain is your income, all right? And your income, and you then would declare your permissible deductions. How much are you paying as a medical aid contribution? What are your rates and taxes? What is your retirement annuity? Your funeral policy contributions. Those are permissible in law, as what will send the legislation. So after that consideration, because you have comprehensive reports, and assessor would use those reports to assess your child from fellows. That's a baseline that he would have. He would make his recommendation whether you have a disability or not from a social assistance perspective, all right? And then you would apply. Possibility in this instance would certify your child to be meeting the eligibility criteria in terms of disability, but there's a possibility that you might be excluded on the basis of income from a SASSA side. Remember, the government year in, year out, they publish the threshold, all right? But they also give leverage to permissible deductions. So those are possible scenarios. If you're under the threshold, then there's a sliding scale inverse relation between your income and what you might get at SASSA. Is that clear, ma'am?
Yes, I think that is clear. Yeah, so are you saying that should I go to the SASSA with those assessments, and how do I go about? Do I go to the SASSA office? Is there a link that I can use to ensure that that evaluation is done and I know if I qualify or not?
Can I have your email address, ma'am? And I'll ask
Okay, I will leave it on the chat.
I can't see it from.
Okay, I will get it. I will get it on the chat for you, Akona. No problem.
Tulani, you'll get a call from our Eastern Cape counterpart.
Okay, thank you so much. I think my questions have been answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, Akona,
Yes.
I'm just going to say, sorry, I know there's still a couple of hands are up, but I've got here a concern from somebody. I'm going to read it. Concern and frustration that is a profoundly deaf person who was born deaf, went to the school for the deaf, will not benefit from hearing aids, and the Director General still awarded on temporary basis, such as they have to go for an evaluation every 6 months. I mean, this is a permanent condition. Shouldn't this be, you know, just a disability grant for life? I mean, this should be.
All right. Melanie speaks to what presented at the point of assessment. We've had situations of lots of malingering in this space. It could be the 6 grand, but the serial nature of it then is questionable. Because if there's one report from an audiologist that confirms exactly that, and we've proven that it's authentic, the prognosis will not change anytime soon. It's permanent, and then we should then get permanent award. But there was a misnomer in the past where we always wanted fresh audiology reports. And if I recall, about 5 years ago, we then went to Inkosi Albert, the 2 lead audiology department, who told us that their waiting period is about 12 months for them to be conclusive. And then we started engaging. Why do we need fresh if this person all their life went to a school for the deaf and blind? And there is maybe an affidavit that would be completed by a principal and then social worker. So in those instances, we do allow old information, but we also, as Mr. Fan is in such case, to strengthen your case, for one to just print that referral form so that it supports the old information, take it to a source that is treating, they can quickly complete that referral form to close the loop of serial temporal disability grants. All right? Is that okay, Melanie?
Thank you.
Can I come in as well? I think the other provision that exists, Akona did touch on it earlier on. I want to take the colleagues that are in this webinar to once again to the SASSA website. What we have done as SASSA, we have put, because in an instance where a particular client, and let's talk of this particular deaf child who was born deaf, and every time he goes to SASSA, they give him a 6 months disability. So in an instance where the client believes that they have a strong case for an alternative outcome and not just a temporary award, if they believe that they have a strong case and they have adequate documentation, so in other words, the 3 speakers, all of them are talking of having extensive report in their positions that confirms the actual level of disability for these children. So where there is that strong belief, if the outcome has been given and you are not comfortable, and that's the part that Akona touched on, you can go into the SASSA website. In that tab that I referred to, it's written social grant forms. In there, we have placed the appeal forms. We have also placed the reconsideration form. So you can get into a SASSA website, download the form for reconsideration, complete it, then just drop it at your nearest SASSA office, or forward it. We have provided the email addresses where you can forward that particular form so that you request SASSA to reconsider its decision. Let's assume for the worst case, SASSA receives that reconsideration application, it reconsidered its decision, and SASSA says, I'm holding on to my guns, you are still temporarily disabled for 6 months. And there is this belief that, look, I'm not temporarily disabled, I'm permanently disabled. I can prove it with these documents. So a client can then print from that SASSA website, can print the appeal forms, complete the appeal forms, submit them directly to SASSA, or if the client feels that, I really do not want to deal with SASSA this time, I'm tired of them, we have provided an email address where that appeal form can be forwarded to the ministry, directly to the Ministry of Social Development, together with these reports that the client will be having from the treating sources, so that the matter can be appealed, and eventually a different group of adjudicators can look at the appeal, all the facts that would have been presented, and they can then take a decision to uphold the SASSA's position or throw it off and say, listen, SASSA was wrong, you are permanently disabled and you must be given a permanent disability. With either one of those outcomes, SASSA will have no option but to do as either the appeal tribunal would have decided, or would have to do what the reconsiderer would have decided. Thank you very much. So the SASSA website, there's a number of forms on that particular website that are critical to those that are attending the webinar. Thank you.
Okay. Melanie, throughout what Fanny has referred to, the grant will not be affected, the 6 months one. So as those considerations are being undertaken, the appeals, you are appealing the 6 months award. If the permanent, then you'll alter it on our side, and then you'll get a new outcome letter. In the case of someone who was born deaf, I would encourage the part that Mr. Fanny has just alluded to now, with patience until the appeals tribunal stage.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
We've still got hands up. I know what our time is running out. Orion. Orion, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, sorry about that. My phone was locked. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Right.
Continue.
Okay. I just wanna make sure my son has ASD, right? And I obviously wanna apply for the care dependency grant. So and I know exactly where the SASSA offices are located close to me. But when I go there, do the forms or the paperwork that I need to take along with me, is that the medical assessment form that needs to be completed by the OT or the neurodevelopmental pediatrician that we have? And what do I have to take along with me on that specific day, and like in regards to the forms and so forth?
All right, Orion. One, all the specialist reports that you have, we encourage you to bring those on the day of an assessment, on the day you go to SASSA. But also, there's that referral form. Should you have an appointment with, just complete it as you are there, and then you take all those documents to SASSA. And then the SASSA form, the disability grant form, it will be used by a SASSA assessor. It remains with SASSA. All right, is that okay?
Okay, so
which
so
province
I
are you
need
located?
I'm in the Western Cape. I'm in Cape Town.
All right. You can see my email address at the bottom, then I can channel someone who would then advise, and especially that you know where the office is, who will advise you also with precision.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure. I'll grab your email in a minute. Just as I can't see it. There we go. Okay. I just want to make sure. So in regards to the forms and things on the medical assessment form, that needs to be completed by me or the doctor.
No. It will be completed by our SASSA commissioned doctor.
Oh, because I just print it out and take it along with me.
You print, that's a referral form that would support the baseline for your child. Meaning,
okay.
Yes. The assessment form remains property of SASSA. Your form that you print is the referral form with all the neurodevelopmental issues that you have referred to, and then to substantiate so that the doctor can assess on that baseline. Remember, these are hidden disabling conditions. He wants to appreciate the opinions of fellow clinicians who have had the time to work with your son.
Yes.
Yes.
So take as much information with as possible, like maybe something from the OT, from the speech therapist, and from the pediatrician as well. Okay. I'll grab all of those goodies.
Yes. And once more, the outcome will be adverse. Use the same information to apply for internal reconsideration. Be patient enough until the appeals tribunal. All that information, because the appeal tribunals, it's doctors who sit there and attorneys who consider your case.
Okay.
Can I come in?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think for your question, you were saying what are other documents? So I think for the rest of this webinar, I've been making reference to SASSA forms tab on the website.
Yeah, I see that, yeah.
But this time around, for your question, I want to refer you again to the SASSA website, but not on the social grants, not on the forms tab. There is a special tab that is referred to as social grants. You will never miss it because it is right there on your face.
It's right on top, yeah.
So it is on top, exactly. So you go to that social grants tab, you choose care dependency grant, then it will open you, it will give you some basic information, but it says for more information, click here. If you click there.
I saw that, I downloaded that.
So if you click there, they have listed all the documents that you must take along. I think so far we have been making emphasis on the referral form, on the additional medical reports that you have, because those are key. But the rest of the other documents, they are listed for you in some chronological order. So if you can go in there, download that, start preparing that information so that when you go there, you go with everything that you need. Because on the social grant forms tab, there is also affidavits that we have put, the standardized affidavits that we have put there. So you will have to look at which grant are you going to visit SASSA office for. If you are going to visit SASSA office regarding a care dependency grant, it will be best to go into that social grant forms tab and download the, beside the referral form, you must also try to download the affidavit that is applicable to the grant that you will be coming to SASSA for. So that affidavit, you can get it sorted.
The GIA.
No, if you are going for grant in aid, yes, you'll download the grant in aid one. But if you are going there for care dependency, you can't take a grant in aid GIA.
Sorry, I'm getting it wrong.
Yeah, you must take a care dependency affidavit. If you are going there for an old age, then you'll take the applicable one. But all what I'm saying is, majority of this information is available on the SASSA website. You can download it and start preparing it before you do a visit to SASSA, so that when you go to SASSA, you have a complement of all that is required.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I'll get those goodies done for you guys and come through. Thank you so much. Thanks, Akona.
Okay.
Melanie?
Yes, Bernadette.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, awesome. Thanks so much. I actually wanted to also ask the same question that Orion did. And I've heard the answer, so thank you so much. However, I'm not sure which site I'm supposed to be on because I'm not finding one that has grant tab. Can you please give me the address, the site address?
The site address is www.sassa.gov.za.
.gov.za. Okay. And then can you please also just tell me, I know that at some point during lockdown, there were certain days for certain things at SASSA. Can I go on any days to do an application?
Which province are you at, ma'am?
I'm I'm in Johannesburg.
Fanny, can you respond? I think it's on a daily basis. There's no day.
Yeah, no, you are correct. I think at the moment it's a daily basis. But at times offices have different dynamics. It may happen that on the day that you go there, you find that maybe if the office has been exposed to COVID for some reason or the other, and they are running on skeletal staff, they will guide you. But generally across the country is Monday to Friday.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Okay.
That was Bernadette, and I think we've entertained Jacques and
Beverly, and then I think we should call it quits.
All right. Melanie, we're handing over to the chair.
Yes, Beverly, would you still like to ask something quickly?
Yes, please. Thank you for the opportunity. So we working with people with disability, of course. So I know most of the people ask about forms and how to do the process of the applications and all of that. However, I have a barrier issue. The barrier issue is just the fact that one of our clients is out in Riebeek West or Riebeek Kasteel, either or, and they apply. They go directly to Malmesbury to SASSA application. So I have a mother that has been waiting for almost a year for the doctor at one of the state hospitals to complete. I'm not sure if it's the doctor or the administrator at the hospital to complete the form correctly. So now every time the documents that the supporting documents expire, and now the mother, I've called the hospital. They have given me issues regarding completing this form. It's only a stamp that needs to be completed for SASSA to process the application. So now I've raised the concern that even me myself, I need to keep on constantly calling the specific person responsible to complete the form or get the prof to complete the form. And now, because I've constantly calling this person, I've been seen as I'm being too persistent. They are very busy. They can't just foresee this specific person. But I mean, I understand that we are busy. I understand people are busy. But for a year to put a stamp on a form. And now this mother got an appointment for some department, this specific hospital in June. So they consider completing this specific form only then. And if they do complete this form, obviously the mother can't take this form to Malmesbury. This form needs to go to Bellville SASSA office and then only be distributed to Malmesbury. So that is the barriers. This is one of many cases that people with disabilities and in isolated communities are facing delays and all of this. I can mention a lot, but only to focus on that specific one. So now we're still sitting with this form, only needing a stamp, but the mother can't apply for disability grant.
All right.
Or care dependency.
Beverly, we have written to our regions, but my request is that you note my email address. Have
Yes,
you
Akona.
noted it?
I
Note
did,
my,
yes.
my email address so that we manage, and to everyone else experiencing such challenges, we want that partnership. But we've written to all our provinces to accept for the period due to the impact of COVID closure, to accept expired referral information. All right. So, but colleagues, please, should you don't sit there. If you come across anyone, my email address is the most reliable one. I'll point it to precision to a program manager in that particular province. And to improve this service, colleagues, it's important that whenever you come across any concerning issue, use this email address. And luckily, there's also Diane's one and Fanny's as well, might also be availed. But colleagues, speedy response. When you experience such thing, my email is there. And when it comes, I'll action it immediately. And it also helps that when you write an email, you also include your contact detail, because when I open it immediately, to understand detail, I'll call you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We still got Jock Foster's hand up, and then he wants to ask another question.
No, just Fanny's
Good.
details is on the screen. It's only Diane Dunkerley and Akona's. Can you just possibly reflect that on the screen if possible, please?
I don't know. Just drop me an email, then I'll respond with it, Jacques.
Akona, if I may ask, would I be able to, can I give your permission to share these details and maybe the recording as well with persons that could not attend this morning?
The recording.
Maybe the
yes,
presentation,
the presentation, yes.
Okay.
Then, and with my contact detail, they're in the public domain.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Melanie, it's over to you.
Thank you. Marina, would you like to have a final word?
Thank you very much. All I can say, Akona, you and your colleagues, thank you for taking the time out to answer questions in very clear detail, to share this information with us. As SADA, we certainly look forward to expanding the working relationship with you. I think I speak on behalf of all the participants to say that the information you provided was very clear and that it was extremely useful. So we look forward to improving access to social grants by persons with disabilities in the interest of their dignity and well-being. So a big thank you to you. Please also pass our thanks and appreciation to Dai. And then we look forward to the next webinar, which will take place in the next quarter. Please keep your eye on our social media. Stay in touch with us and you will find out what the next webinar is. Our first one was in December and dealt with disability taxation. This one dealt with social grants. If you have a specific topic that you would like us to tackle, please feel free to contact us and let us know what you would like to talk about, and we'll do our best to accommodate that. Thank you to all of you. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Akona and Fanny, and all your colleagues.
Tebo from KZN. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.